Guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into the dim corridors of a secluded Buddhist temple in medieval Japan. It's just past sunset and the mountain air outside is cool and damp. There's no electricity here, no hum of neon, no soft buzz from a phone screen. Instead, the only illumination comes from a single flickering oil lamp, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. You can smell cedar and old incense clinging to the walls. Your feet are bare, your robe is coarse, and your eyelids are already a little heavy. That's unfortunate, because sleep isn't something you're exactly encouraged to do here. You're stepping into the quiet world of the Zen monastic life, where silence is golden, schedules are strict, and even your sleep has spiritual significance. You'll be sleeping tonight, but not in the way you're used to. In fact, you probably won't survive this. Not because of a sword fight or dramatic betrayal or anything like that. No, it's the schedule that'll do you in. A gentle, relentless, sleep-resistant routine that views rest as an opportunity for vigilance, not luxury. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin at dusk, when most temples start to quiet down. There's no dramatic tolling of bells or theatrical shift changes, just a collective softening. Monks retreat from evening chores, cleaning, tending the vegetable plot, sweeping fallen pine needles from temple paths. You pass by a novice carefully folding a straw mat. He moves slowly, like the motion itself is a form of prayer. You're still hungry. Dinner was an early affair. Thin rice porridge, a pickled vegetable, maybe a few beans if you're lucky, but nothing heavy. Meals are designed not to weigh the body down or dull the senses, and certainly not to promote indulgent naps. You already missed lunch, which featured the same menu. Night in a Zen monastery comes early, partly because of the sun's setting, and partly because the next day starts painfully soon. By the time darkness spreads across the slopes outside, the temple grounds are hushed. You step over the threshold of your sleeping quarters called a sodo, or meditation hall. Though you'll be sleeping here too, believe it or not. You remove your sandals before stepping inside. The floor is cool beneath your soles. The scent of dried straw rises faintly from the tatami mats, and the room is dim. Each monk has a small space, often no more than a few feet wide, separated only by habit and etiquette. No doors, no partitions, no privacy. You lay out your bedding, which is, well, let's be generous, basic. A thin straw mat, sometimes a folded cloth, sometimes just your robe. Pillows, if they exist, are solid blocks of wood or stuffed with straw. It's meant to keep your head elevated just enough to discourage deep, luxurious sleep. Remember, the goal isn't comfort. It's alert restfulness, and maybe a little bit of physical suffering. Builds character. Outside, the cicadas start their slow, rhythmic chorus, a kind of insect lullaby that's actually quite soothing. Your bones ache slightly as you lower yourself to the mat. There's no blanket, just your robe. And you're not allowed to lie down fully, at least not without restraint. The older monks prefer a seated sleep posture, knees folded beneath them, back straight. You're expected to mimic that, at least while anyone's watching. As the oil lamp guttering in the corner throws one last stutter of light, you wonder briefly how anyone ever adjusts to this. And the truth is, many don't. Monastic chronicles from the Kamakura and Muromachi periods mention a fair number of monks who left after a few months or days, citing exhaustion. And really, who could blame them? But those who stayed, they developed something close to a sixth sense for time. They could doze lightly for an hour or two and wake just in time for the midnight bell. Because yes, you will be waking up in the middle of the night. No one's told you that yet, but you're starting to suspect it. Historians still argue whether all monasteries followed the same strict sleep discipline or whether some rural temples were a bit more forgiving. It likely depended on the sect. Zen schools like Soto and Rinzai were famously tough, but more esoteric or syncretic sects may have allowed the occasional side nap. As your body adjusts to the darkness and the chill, you close your eyes, not to drift off fully, but to rest in alertness. Outside, a soft wind rustles the bamboo. Someone coughs. Someone else shifts on the mat, releasing a creaky little exhale. Sleep comes slowly, lightly, and not for long. The lamp has gone out now. Complete darkness surrounds you, the kind that makes it hard to tell whether your eyes are open or closed. But sleep, such as it is, doesn't last long. The bell strikes once, not a church bell, not a jangly Western clang. This is a deep, resonant gong, a bancho, sounding from somewhere in the temple courtyard. You jolt half awake, though no one around you moves dramatically. A few figures shift upright. One novice sighs very quietly, the sound of resignation wrapped in sleep. You rise slowly from the mat, joints stiff and clothing rumpled. This is the beginning of the gyoji, the monastic schedule. And part of that schedule involves not sleeping through the night, but breaking it into fragments, interrupted by duties and devotions. It's just past midnight. By the pale glow of a single hanging lantern, you file quietly out into the corridor with the others. No talking, just the soft scuff of straw sandals and the whisper of robes brushing over wooden floors. You're heading to the main hall now, where the sutra chanting begins. The hall is massive, cold, and smells faintly of cedar and burnt incense. You kneel on the hard floor, spine straight, knees aching already. Candles flicker across the lacquered beams. A senior monk strikes the wooden fish drum, a mokugyo, and the rhythm begins. Low chanting follows, rolling like the sea. You try to join in, mouthing syllables you barely understand. The chants are ancient Chinese in pronunciation, filtered through Japanese liturgical patterns, and they wash over you like warm rain. You feel hypnotized. Your mind drifts, then jolts back as you nearly tip forward. The monk beside you glances, disapproving. There's no room for snoring here. Do that and you'll be gently tapped with a long, flat stick. Keisaku. It's not punishment, not really. It's a compassionate reminder meant to encourage mindfulness. Still, you'd rather not be tapped. Historians still debate just how sleep-deprived monks actually were. Some scrolls suggest they got a few solid hours each night, depending on the temple. Others describe rigorous practices where sleeping longer than 3 hours was seen as laziness. Your aching knees suggest the stricter interpretation might have been more common. After what feels like an hour, but is probably less, the chanting ends. You shuffle back to the sleeping hall, heart still thrumming from the rhythm. But your body has passed the point of natural rest. It's buzzing now, stuck between sleep and wakefulness. Back in your space, you don't bother adjusting your robe. You slump down, limbs grateful for contact with the floor. The straw mat feels oddly softer now, like your body has given up protesting. This time sleep comes faster, heavier. You dream, maybe. A flicker of a lantern, a bell with no sound, a cat walking through the hallway. Or maybe it's real. You can't tell. Then another bell rings. You're up again. This cycle, brief sleep, ritual, brief sleep again, defines your nights here. The goal isn't just devotion, but discipline. Sleep is a test. Can you remain mindful even when your body begs for rest? Oddly, you start to adapt. Your thoughts quiet faster. Your breaths grow deeper. There's something oddly soothing about the predictability of it. You don't have to decide when to wake or when to sleep. It's all prescribed. You just follow. And in the stillness, something shifts. You begin to notice the tiny details of nightlife in the temple, the precise sound of the wind passing through shoji screens, the faint scent of wax, the way your breath clouds faintly in the air. Each night sharpens your awareness, not in a caffeinated modern way, but slowly, like a blade being wet across weeks. One quirky detail you pick up from the older monks is how some of them train themselves to wake at set intervals, without any external bell. They call it jiki, a self-discipline that eventually lets them rise before the gong. You find that idea suspiciously magical. But then again, your body is starting to stir before the bell too. Maybe there's something to it. A senior monk, during morning meal, mentions that even the Buddha himself was said to rest for only a few hours a night. Whether that's literally true or not, no one's sure. But here it's taken as gospel. You stumble back into your place for what might be your final rest before dawn. You kneel, you fold your arms. Your back stays straight for a few moments, then softens. And this time sleep arrives like a whispered permission. You wake, or more precisely, you're nudged awake again. But this time no bell, just a firm tap on the shoulder with the end of a broom handle. It's still dark, though the air feels subtly different, like the deep middle of the night has passed and the first threads of morning are beginning to tug at the sky. You've slept maybe 2 hours, maybe less. You sit upright, stretching slowly, spine protesting. A yawn escapes before you can muffle it. The monk next to you gives a sidelong glance, not irritated, just resigned. You both know this routine. The temple is quiet, but never truly silent. Outside, the chirr of crickets is softening. Somewhere in the distance, a cockerel has gotten ahead of himself. You begin to ready yourself, not for a meal, not for another round of chanting, but for cleaning. That's right. You're off to sweep leaves in the pitch dark. You shuffle along the outer walkways with a handful of others, each holding a handmade broom made of tied twigs. The gravel crunches softly underfoot. You sweep carefully but deliberately. The goal isn't to clean every speck, but to remain fully present with each stroke. This is part of the Zen ideal. Mindfulness in all acts, even while half asleep and possibly hallucinating a talking crow. Here's the thing. Monks in medieval Japan weren't always given fixed sleep hours. The idea was to rest only as much as necessary to function, and even then, just barely. The Buddhist ideal emphasized detachment from the body's cravings. Sleep? That was just another craving to be conquered. Your sleeping arrangements reflect this belief. You remember now, your bed is a literal wooden platform. No mattress, no fluff, just smooth planks that have been swept clean and worn smooth by centuries of tired knees and elbows. It isn't cruelty, it's spiritual ergonomics. Many monks, especially those practicing zazen, sitting meditation, didn't even lie down. They slept sitting up, draped loosely in their robes, often on the same platform they meditated on. You try this posture. It's ambitious. Your spine quickly regrets it. But there's a trick. Some monks learn to use a makura, a small, firm neck rest shaped like a headstone made of wood or lacquer. It elevates just enough to keep the head aligned, but not so much that you'll relax too deeply. You lie down on it once, then shoot upright because your ear is now ringing from the pressure. A novice tells you, without smiling, it gets easier, which might be a joke or a warning or both. Historians still debate the actual length of sleep monks got during this era. Some suggest that sleep was segmented into brief blocks, an hour here, 2 there, often broken by ritual or chores. Others argue there was a longer rest window in less rigid temples, especially in colder climates. You'd lean toward the segmented version, based on your current level of delirium. One fringe tidbit you overheard during evening tea is that some older monks claim to sleep with their eyes open, just a sliver, to avoid surprise inspections. You assume they were exaggerating, or maybe just hallucinating from sleep deprivation. Honestly, it's hard to tell anymore. You return from sweeping and perform a brief water ritual, cold water, always cold, splashing it on your face and hands, bowing slowly, wiping your face with your sleeve. You wonder briefly if you're dreaming. It's hard to know when your dreams and your waking hours are stitched together by ritual and repetition. Back in the meditation hall, you settle again into zazen. You kneel, you fold your hands, your breathing deepens. This is supposed to be your most mindful state, and yet you doze, not a full sleep. Just that tipping forward, brain-blinking kind of doze, where time vanishes for a moment. You catch yourself. Sit straighter. Swallow guilt like rice. The monk beside you snores once, softly. Somewhere in the rafters, a spider begins its nightly spin, delayed perhaps, or just continuing the pattern from yesterday. Everything in this place continues a pattern. Even your exhaustion feels cyclical now. The bell rings again, not for waking this time, but to signal the next event. Morning sutras. The sky has turned indigo behind the rice paper doors. You can almost hear the day arriving. But not quite. You rise again. You're tired. You've never been more tired. But something about the rhythm is starting to feel familiar. Not comforting exactly, but bearable. And that's something. You walk toward the main hall again, ready to chant with cracked lips and sandpaper eyes. And for the first time, you don't dread it. The sutras begin again, and you're back on your knees. The floor is still cold. The hall is still dim. But now you know the words a little better. Your tongue rolls them out with less hesitation, even if the meaning still eludes you like a dream fading at sunrise. You chant softly, eyes lowered, spine aching with a quiet sort of loyalty. Not to comfort, not even to understanding, but to repetition, to doing the same thing, the same way as those who came before you. You steal a glance at the older monks, their faces lit softly by the wavering light of candles. They look serene, not awake necessarily, but still, as if they've come to a private agreement with sleep. You won't seek me, and I won't need you. In this moment, you feel the difference between sleep and stillness. You are not sleeping, but you are not moving either. And there's something restful in that in-between place. See, in many Zen sects, particularly Soto, the ideal wasn't a good night's sleep. It was good wakefulness. And if wakefulness came at the cost of comfort, all the better. It meant you were resisting the self, the ego, the craving machine. Monks weren't supposed to escape suffering. They were supposed to sit beside it, nod politely, and carry on chanting. But sleep, bless it, still sneaks in 1,000 ways. There's an unspoken ritual you begin to notice. The long blink. You see it in the monks near you. A blink that lasts just slightly too long. 2 seconds, maybe 3. Eyes closed, breath still, then open, as if nothing happened. Some of them do it in rhythm with the chanting, others between lines. It's not sleep. It's blinking devotion, you tell yourself. But really, it's micro-napping, a survival tactic in a world where guilt-free rest is a luxury long forgotten. You remember now a curious passage recited earlier? Even the moonlight bends when faced with a drowsy monk. No one explained it. They didn't need to. Some scholars today argue whether the harshness of these sleep regimens was about spiritual rigor or just a clever way to maintain order in a population of men with too much time and too few distractions. It's hard to rebel when you're barely awake. Others point to Buddhist cosmology, where the body is transient, unreliable, a flesh machine always breaking down. The goal wasn't to pamper it. The goal was to free yourself from it. And sleep, tempting as it was, anchored you back to your body's limitations. A quirky detail from temple records in the Muromachi period tells of a monk who, upon falling asleep during zazen, muttered poetry about fish flying over rooftops. Instead of being punished, he was praised for creative surrender. The head monk reportedly nodded and said, "Even dreams can teach, if they arrive quietly." You like that idea. Back in the hall, the final chants fade. A monk rises slowly, walks past each row, offering warm barley tea from a ladle-shaped pot. The steam curls like a spirit, and you wrap your hands gratefully around the cup. You sip slowly. It tastes of earth, smoke, and barely their sweetness. As the tea warms you, you feel the edge of sleep brushing your thoughts. Not pulling you under, just brushing. Like a feather over a closed eye. You're allowed another hour now. An informal pause in the duties. You return to your platform, the wooden one with your makeshift pillow, and this time you allow yourself to lie down fully. Your robe wraps you loosely. The air smells like cedar and barley. Outside, morning birds begin their hesitant melodies. You close your eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, you feel something close to bliss. Not comfort, not pleasure, but a deep, humming gratitude for stillness, for having made it this far into the night. And yes, you fall asleep, but not deeply, not for long. And when you wake, no one has tapped you. No bell has rung. You simply know it's time to rise. You rise with the others, the room still dim but tinged now with the gentle gray of pre-dawn. It's not light yet, not really, but the darkness has softened around the edges. Outside, the trees are beginning to appear again, not as shadows but as shapes, limbs stretching toward the sky, like old monks doing their morning stretches. You rub your face, your hands feel dry, your knees stiff, but there's something almost satisfying about the ache. You've earned it in a weird way. It's the kind of fatigue that settles into the bones like warm tea into a clay cup. The hall is quieter now. No chanting, no sweeping. Just a short window of relative pause. But don't get too cozy. It's time to prepare for morning devotions. And that means one thing: cold water. You make your way to the chozuya, the stone basin used for purification. A bamboo ladle rests on the rim. You scoop the water, still cold from the night, and pour it over your hands, then your face. The shock jolts you more effectively than any espresso. Your breath catches, your eyes widen, and for just a second, you're completely, undeniably awake. You dry your hands on your robe, because towels are not a thing here, and return to your place for morning meditation. This is your third time sitting today, and the sun still hasn't cracked the sky. Sleep? That's so last lifetime. Now here's a curious cultural twist. Some temples permitted short naps in the form of meditative resting. They didn't call it sleep, they called it mokuso, or silent thought. You'd sit in seiza, knees folded under you, spine tall, and allow the body to relax while maintaining the form. It was equal parts posture and pretend. Some monks swore they could fall into a kind of half-sleep. During mokuso, a trance-like rest that didn't count as actual sleep because technically, their eyes were still open. Technically, historians still debate whether this was conscious trickery or a genuine altered state. Either way, it gave the monks a loophole, and every system needs a loophole. After the meditation, it's finally breakfast. You file into the dining hall, single file, no talking. The bowls are set out in precise lines, 3 per monk, laid on folded cloth. You bow to your meal before you eat, and again afterward. The ritual is as important as the nourishment. Breakfast is modest: rice porridge, a daikon pickle, maybe a splash of miso soup. The warmth is a blessing, and the blandness, well, it's reliable. You eat slowly, chewing deliberately, tasting every grain. Not because it's delicious, though it kind of is in its own humble way, but because it's the only hot food you'll get for a while. There's no rush to finish, but there's no lingering either. The bowls are washed in silence, dried with a piece of cloth you keep folded in your sleeve. Then they're wrapped and returned to their place. And just like that, the moment is over. Back in the outer courtyard, the day begins in earnest. You're assigned to the herb garden this morning. Rows of neatly arranged green sprouts greet you, some used for medicine, others for seasoning the otherwise plain meals. You take up a wooden trowel and begin weeding. And now comes the oddest thing. You feel fine. Tired, yes, a little fuzzy around the edges, but somehow your body has made peace with the rhythm. You're no longer fighting the lack of sleep. You're working with it, folding your exhaustion into the flow of your day like flour into dough. A senior monk passes by, humming a chant so softly you almost miss it. He doesn't look tired. He doesn't look energized either. He just looks there, present, awake in the way that doesn't require caffeine or a good night's sleep. Awake in the soul. You wonder what it would take to reach that state. Years? A lifetime? Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it just takes repetition. Thousands of days and nights, chanting and sweeping, kneeling and rising, sleeping just enough not to collapse. There's a scroll in the library, faded ink, stiff rice paper, that quotes, "The one who conquers sleep conquers the self." You used to think that was poetic exaggeration. Now you're not so sure. You glance up at the sky. It's finally blue, and you know that soon enough you'll be allowed another brief rest. Not because you've earned it, but because the cycle demands it. You're in the garden still. Dirt under your nails and sun now warm against your shoulders when the small brass bell rings, 3 gentle chimes that echo down the path like a sigh. This isn't the wake-up bell or the meal bell or the meditation bell. This one's different. This one means nap time. Yes, really. It's officially called Gajin. A sanctioned rest period, usually sometime in the early afternoon, just after the heaviest tasks are done and before the sun gets too low. But don't get too excited. This isn't curl up under a blanket with a cat and a podcast kind of nap. This is the monk version. Back in your quarters, you fold your robe carefully. You lay it over the wooden platform again and sit. Not lie, not recline. Just sit, cross-legged or kneeling, depending on your flexibility, which at this point is about the same as an aging pine log. You place your hands in your lap, breathe, and close your eyes. And there it is again, mokuso, or silent thought. Not sleep, definitely not sleep. Just rest with very heavy eyelids. The rules are blurry. You are allowed to doze, but only a little, only if your posture doesn't collapse. If your spine slumps like a cooked noodle, you'll likely receive a gentle, but very real, whack with the kisaku, and you're honestly too tired to be whacked right now. Oddly, you find yourself slipping into a rhythm of light dreaming. You drift in and out, images flashing behind your eyes like candle shadows. Temple rooftops, tea steam, a frog on a rock. You're not fully asleep, but you're not awake either. You are somehow resting in between the states. The scholarly debates continue to this day. Was Gajin genuinely restful, or just a strategic brain reset, like turning your modem off and on? Monastic logs from the 14th century mention monks reporting visions during these naps, conversations with long-gone masters, or dreams so vivid they prompted whole scrolls of poetry. Other logs, more practical ones, simply note how fewer people passed out during evening meditation if they got their half-hour Gajin. One fringe document even tells of a monk in the north who claimed to nap with such discipline that I awake without moving a hair. You think about this claim as you twitch suddenly and nearly fall sideways. Yeah, no, not quite there yet. Still, this little window of sleep, this crumb of mercy in your schedule, starts to make a big difference. Your limbs feel a little lighter, your thoughts a little clearer. It's not a full recharge, but it's just enough to continue. And right on cue, a wooden block clacks once in the hallway. Hayoshigi. Nap time's over. You rise again, brush the straw from your robe, and shuffle back into the sunlight. The warmth on your face is gentler now. Your eyes squint, but your body's not dragging as badly as before. You resume your tasks, maybe temple maintenance, maybe copying sutras, maybe just organizing the sandals outside the bathhouse. And as you work, you begin to understand why this structure matters. It isn't just about denying comfort. It's about predictability. In a world without alarm clocks or coffee shops or sleep apps that chirp, you've had 80% of optimal REM. The monks relied on rhythm. The body, after enough repetition, will begin to match the cadence of the temple bell. There's an older monk who has a reputation for napping with his eyes open. You've never seen him blink. He meditates for hours, immovable, a quiet mountain. You once thought he was carved from wood, but this morning you caught him in a moment, just the slightest nod forward, the barest slackening of his jaw, and then alert again. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe everyone naps just a little. You return to the scriptorium where some of the younger monks are illuminating a scroll with tiny foxes and chrysanthemums. You take up a worn brush and begin to trace over faded kanji. Your strokes are shaky at first, but they smooth out. The rhythm returns. It always does. The light outside is shifting again. Afternoon stretches its limbs. And tonight you'll repeat this whole thing again. The bells, the mats, the posture, the dream of sleep more than sleep itself. But now, for the first time, you're not dreading it. You're almost looking forward to it. The afternoon moves forward like syrup down a slope, slow and golden, sticking to everything. You're sweeping again. This time the wide veranda that circles the temple garden. The broom creaks softly with each stroke. Pine needles, dry leaves, tiny bits of dust that seem to regenerate the moment you sweep them away. You're not fully aware of how tired you are until you pause and lean your weight into the broom. Your arms ache, your eyes blur. Your brain hums like a half-tuned lute. Sleep is prowling again, subtle but insistent, and yet you're not allowed to surrender to it just yet. In the Zen monastic view, sleepiness isn't a physical weakness. It's a klesha, a mental affliction, a fog of ignorance that dulls the mind and drags the spirit into sloth. In Mahayana tradition, there's even a name for it, thenamida. And it's not just frowned upon. It's considered a genuine obstacle to enlightenment. You're not just sleepy. You're being spiritually attacked by the demon of drowsiness. No pressure. You remember a teaching from earlier in the week where the abbot compared drowsiness to a sly ox that slips into your rice field and eats from within. Very specific. And quite frankly, slightly offensive to oxen. But that metaphor has stuck with you, especially now as you feel the ox gently headbutting your thoughts. Luckily, the monks have methods to ward it off. You stop sweeping for a moment and reach into the folds of your robe. You pull out a pickled plum, a sour little sphere that jolts the mouth like a lightning bolt in vinegar form. You pop it in, your lips pucker, your eyes water slightly, but your brain? Instant alertness. It's a shortcut some monks swear by. The extreme tartness reboots the system without actually needing a nap. Think of it as medieval Japan's version of an energy drink, just slightly more fermented. Others chew on green tea leaves, bitter and dry, but packed with caffeine. Still others take slow, rhythmic walks around the temple grounds, eyes downcast, matching their breath to their steps. It's a practice called kinhin, or walking meditation. You try it, shuffling softly between stones, the temple's shadows stretching long ahead of you. And it works, for a while. Historians still argue whether all these anti-sleep practices were part of formal training or just clever improvisation. The most rigorous temples had clear rules, but smaller rural monasteries may have let monks nap a little more freely, especially during harvest or when illness ran through the ranks. You imagine those places fondly, like mythical lands where naps were legal tender. You're startled from your imagining by the sound of wooden clappers again. Evening tasks await. Back inside, you find yourself assigned to the incense room, where sticks of sandalwood and aloes wood are prepared and sorted for temple use. It's quiet work, peaceful, dangerous too, because the scent is so calming that it practically lulls you into dream space. As you grind a piece of resin into powder, the aroma fills your nose. It smells like warmth and memory, like stories passed through breath. Your hands move methodically, tracing the same circles again and again. You blink slowly, once, twice, then snap awake. You're doing it again. The ox is back. You switch tactics. You chew on a slice of pickled burdock root, less exciting than the plum, but more sustaining. You rub your face. You sit up straighter. You do not, under any circumstance, lie down. You notice something else now. Your body's resistance to tiredness isn't really getting stronger. You're just adapting to the feeling. You're learning to live with it, like how someone might live with a limp or a creaky door. The monks around you never complain. They never collapse into their tasks. But if you look closely, really look, you'll see it. The half-lidded eyes, the small stretches when backs are turned, the quiet exhalations that sound suspiciously like stifled yawns. They're tired too, but they keep going, and so do you. The sun sets behind the ridge. The garden turns gold, then copper, then ink. Crickets begin again. The bamboo knocks softly in the breeze. You return your tools, bow to the incense, and shuffle back to your sleeping mat. It's not bedtime yet, but your body's counting the seconds. Darkness returns like an old friend, soft and predictable. You sit on your mat again, not to sleep yet, but to prepare. Because in this temple, even rest is preceded by ritual. There's no collapsing into bed, no stretching out with a groan and a sigh, no rolling over and checking the moon for approval. Instead, you straighten your robe, kneel properly, and fold your hands in a mudra of respect before reclining. The movement is slow, deliberate. One of the monks nearby clears his throat softly, not in warning, but as a shared cue. The group begins to wind down together, but sleep isn't the goal, not really. You're meant to maintain shikantaza, a kind of just sitting meditation, even as your body rests. A paradox, yes. But this is Zen, after all. They love paradoxes like bees love blossoms. The mat beneath you is the same woven straw as before, the same wooden floor below it, the same draft of evening air sneaking in through the paper screens. But something feels different tonight. Maybe it's your posture. Straighter now, less wobbly. Maybe it's your expectations, lowered just enough to stop resisting the discomfort. Or maybe you've just entered a kind of rhythm that numbs the need for more. You fold your hands gently over your belly and let your thoughts drift. Not wildly, not carelessly, but like a boat tied loosely to a dock. There's a sound outside, the wooden yoi no cane bell, a deep, mellow chime that signals the time to still yourself. It doesn't command, it invites, and you accept. You lie down, the wooden pillow again. Your neck has started to accept it now, no longer recoiling at the hardness. In fact, it feels oddly stable, grounding. You close your eyes just for a moment, and then come the dreams. Oh, the dreams, they arrive differently here. Not in the rush of a REM cycle, but in slow, cool waves. Images, not narratives. A pond, a candle, the sound of sweeping, the weight of the brush in your hand. Dreams, you've learned, are treated cautiously in this world. To some monks, they are sacred, messages from the subconscious, symbols from past lives, echoes of karmic memory. To others, they are distractions at best, delusions at worst. The mind's final trick before letting go. Historians still discuss how dreams were interpreted in various sects. Some temples kept dream journals. Others forbade discussion of them entirely. A few monks claim to have received teachings from dream Buddhas, luminescent figures speaking in riddles. Naturally, you don't write your dreams down, of course. You're not permitted to keep writing tools in your sleeping quarters, but you remember them in the morning. Sort of. Enough to know they're different now. Slower, softer, like the temple itself has seeped into your imagination. One odd tidbit you overheard during evening meal. A monk once dreamed of an enormous snail that taught him a new breathing technique. The next day, his meditation posture improved noticeably. Coincidence? Possibly. But no one mocked him. They just bowed. As you rest tonight, you can feel your own breath slowing. Deep in, deeper out. No counting, no control. Just surrender. Sleep wraps around you, not as a blanket, but as a mist. And yet there's tension still, because you know it won't last. The bell will come again. Maybe at midnight. Maybe earlier. Maybe someone will forget to ring it, and time will become a puddle. But for now, for this breath, this blink, this shallow dream, you are resting. You are a medieval Japanese monk, and this is as close to comfort as you're allowed. And strangely, it's enough. You're not sure what time it is when you stir again. Maybe the third hour of the dog, maybe the fourth. Time here is no longer numbers. It's rhythm. It's bells and breath and silence. You blink into the dark. The faint smell of smoldering incense still lingers in the air, like a shadow of devotion. A soft sound stirs nearby. Not footsteps, not a bell. Just a long exhale from a fellow monk, the kind that marks the moment between dreaming and waking. You sit up slowly, your legs tingle with that now familiar prickly ache. Your back sore from the wooden mat, but it's a clean soreness. Honest, the temple is still cloaked in hush. But there's movement, quiet and practiced. A small procession of robes glides toward the meditation hall again. You fall in line, neither last nor first. Just another figure in the sequence. You're heading toward another long session of zazen, sitting meditation. Not exciting, but essential. And even now, deep into the night, you can feel the shift in your body. A kind of anticipation. Not dread, not desire, just readiness. You take your place on the mat, fold your legs, straighten your spine, rest your hands in your lap, and breathe in, out, and again. The room is quiet but not silent. You hear a faint creak of wood, the rustle of a robe, the occasional thump of a shifting knee. These are the sounds of 100 nights just like this, of centuries echoing through posture and practice. Sleepiness tugs at the edges of your awareness again, a soft, warm pull behind your eyes. Your thoughts start to fray. You see images, tiny lanterns floating on water, a carp nibbling at lotus stems, a robe hung to dry in the breeze. And then you catch yourself. You straighten slightly, you stay present, This balance between wakefulness and dreaming is where monks spend most of their time. Not fully here, not fully gone, suspended. You remember a story told by a senior monk about a master who sat so still during night meditation that a bird built a nest on his shoulder. Obviously apocryphal. Probably. Still, you find yourself sitting just a little straighter, imagining a sparrow evaluating your collarbone. Historians still question the literal truth of such stories, but many agree they served a purpose. They weren't about fact. They were about aspiration, what it meant to be undisturbed, untouched, untroubled by the petty distractions of flesh and sleep and twitchy knees. You try to enter that stillness yourself, but your left foot is fully asleep, not metaphorically, literally. You feel nothing from the knee down. You try to adjust quietly, shifting your weight with the grace of a startled deer, hoping no one notices. A monk to your left raises an eyebrow. You bow your head slightly, apology delivered in silence. Sleep tries to creep in again. You battle it, not with anger, not with force, but with focus. You return to the breath. In, out, one breath, then another. There's an old Zen saying, sleep is not the enemy. Forgetfulness is. You try to remember that. Sleep is fine. It's the dullness that must be resisted. The unthinking doze. The slumping soul. That's what you fight against here. Oddly enough, after a while, you feel it lessen. The drowsiness doesn't vanish, but it becomes something manageable, like background noise, like a fly buzzing in the next room. You finish the session upright, still tired but stable. A novice taps a wooden clapper twice. The session is over. You rise slowly. Blood returns to your foot like 1,000 tiny needles. You wince. Breathe through it. It's part of the ritual now. Outside, the stars are still out, but the horizon has begun to pale, just barely. A line of soft blue chasing away the black. You bow toward the rising light. It's almost morning. Morning arrives not with fanfare, but with ritual. Again. You're standing now in the outer corridor, back straight, shoulders squared, feet bare against the polished wood. A monk walks past with a hand, a wooden board suspended by ropes. He strikes it rhythmically with a mallet, producing a deep, hollow tonk that rolls through the temple grounds, like a calm heartbeat. You know what's coming. You steel yourself, then clack. A block of wood slams against another, Kiyosaku style. It's not meant to scare you, but it's hard not to jump. It's the morning bell substitute, the wake-up hammer of the ascetic world. A few monks blink. One jerks his shoulders. Everyone gets moving. The first activity of the day? Water. Not to drink, not to bless, to splash. You kneel at the stone basin again. The water is glacial. It always is. You ladle it over your face with a practiced hand, trying not to yelp. It's like waking up inside a glacier. But after a few seconds, you're more awake than you've been in hours. Some monasteries believed this cold water ritual wasn't just refreshing, it was morally clarifying. A symbolic scrubbing away of sluggishness, confusion, even sin. You're not sure about all that, but you do feel a tiny thrill of pride. You survived another night. You didn't fall asleep mid-meditation. And your spine is only mildly furious. You return to the courtyard for the next task, a bit of early morning kinhin or walking meditation. You step slowly, deliberately, each step matching your breath. Left, inhale, right, exhale. You pass a mossy stone, a patch of bamboo, a dragonfly caught in a sunbeam. Everything feels heightened in this hour. Edges sharpened by fatigue and repetition. You remember now that in the stricter Rinzai temples, sleep was considered not just a weakness, but an indulgence, a poison of the senses. Monks would sometimes go days with only a few short naps, breaking their rest into bursts between practice. Some even slept upright in wooden boxes, designed to prevent full collapse. They weren't tombs, but they weren't beds either. Historians still argue over the extremes. Some records describe reasonable sleep schedules, especially for the elderly or infirm. Others describe near-total sleep denial, especially during intense training periods. The truth, as always, likely lies somewhere in between, and varies from temple to temple. You glance at one of the older monks now, stooping gently over a broom, eyes half-lidded. He's been at this longer than you've been alive, maybe longer than two of you put together. And yet, he moves with the calm of a cat on a windowsill. He's tired, but it doesn't touch him. You're ushered toward the main hall again. Sutras, one more round. The chants flow from your lips more easily now. The phrases have worn a groove in your brain. You don't think, you recite, and something unexpected happens. Your body begins to move through the ritual on its own. You bow at the right times. You sit just right. You blink when your eyes need moisture, not rest. And somewhere in all that, the urge to sleep, so loud and heavy before, has gone quiet. Not gone, just muted, like a song turned down to background volume. You take note of a small thing. There's incense burning in the corner of the hall, a softer blend this time. Maybe sandalwood or something rarer. It smells like warm paper and citrus bark. You inhale deeply. You know now that this scent is not just decoration. It's a signal. A lullaby to the brain. A reminder to soften, to focus, to keep your mind from drifting too far into dreams. You remember a fringe, teaching discussed in whispers during your first week here? Some monks believed certain incense combinations could delay sleep by sharpening awareness. Others thought it encouraged lucid dreaming. No one agrees. Everyone still lights it anyway. The sutra ends. The bell tolls softly, this one gentle, a kindness instead of a command. You bow, you rise, and once again, you return to your tiny corner of the sleeping quarters, not to rest, not yet, but to fold your robe, straighten your mat, and prepare for whatever strange blend of alertness and exhaustion the next day brings. Outside, the sun has cleared the ridge. The temple walls glow softly, and you, sleep-deprived monk that you are, feel strangely steady. The temple is alive with morning now. Light slants in through the rice paper walls, diffused and golden. The scent of fresh earth and distant pine fires carries on the breeze. Your robe flutters gently as you pass through the open walkway between the sleeping quarters and the main hall. You're not scheduled for meditation this hour? Lucky you. Instead, you've been assigned incense tending. Yes, again. But this time you'll be preparing it, not grinding, not arranging, but lighting and managing the temple's main burners throughout the day. It's a quiet job, calming, but it's also a sensory trap. The moment you enter the incense chamber, your body remembers. It remembers the night before, The sleep that almost came, the dreams that almost made sense. The smell, subtle, musky, warm with a tang of citrus peel and damp sandalwood, wraps around your brain like a blanket. You blink. You breathe in too deeply. You blink again. Here it comes, the sleepiness. It doesn't hit all at once. It never does. It seeps in through your fingertips, up your spine, into your jaw. You begin to imagine yourself as incense, slowly burning down, one grain at a time. But you've been trained for this. You quietly kneel, straighten your back, and begin your task. One burner at a time. A small pinch of powdered kayara here, a fresh stick of aloes wood there. You light a fresh cone and place it just so. The smoke spirals upward, graceful as a crane in flight. And just like that, you're back, present again. It turns out incense was never just a scent. It was a sleep tool, a subtle clock. Different scents were used for different times of day. Deep resins at dusk, light citrus or cedar in the mornings, pine or peppery myrrh at midday to stir the senses. This wasn't accidental, it was engineered over generations. Some monks reportedly could tell the time by the changing aroma of the incense alone. They'd claim, the cedar has faded. Must be just past the monkey hour. Historians still debate whether this was legit timekeeping or just highly suggestible noses, but the result was the same. The smell marked the cycle. You pause beside one of the temple's larger burners, a beautifully carved bronze bowl shaped like a lotus flower. You brush away the old ash, refresh the coals, and press a new pinch of ground incense onto the smoldering center. The smoke coils up with a sigh. It's beautiful, and almost immediately you start to feel dreamy. So here's where it gets weird. Some monks actually used incense as a tool for mindful sleep, not for indulgence, but for structured rest. There was a practice, now mostly forgotten, called Nemuri no Ko, sleep incense. Monks would burn a particular blend, often with cloves and sandalwood, and use it to guide themselves into conscious dreaming. Not unconscious collapse, but a floating state where breath, scent, and spirit aligned. You've never tried it yourself, but you're curious. You ask the incense master, an elderly monk with the posture of a reed and the eyes of a cat, about it. He doesn't speak much, just chuckles, then says, "Don't try it unless you're ready to dream about temples you've never seen." That's not ominous at all. He hands you a tiny cloth pouch. Inside, a mix of ingredients so fragrant your eyes water. Crushed chrysanthemum, trace amber, and something spicy you can't identify. Maybe cinnamon bark? Maybe powdered mystery? He winks and walks away. You pocket the pouch. That night you'll try it. But for now, you continue your rounds, placing burners beside statues and altars, folding your hands after each one. The act is meditative, repetitive, soothing, and in the repetition, the body remembers its place, its rhythm. You don't even want to lie down anymore. Not really. You've found a kind of alert peace inside the scent. You catch yourself smiling, not because you're rested, but because the sleepiness has become just another companion in the monastery, like cold air, like creaky floors, like the bell that always rings too early. And you're okay with that. The day rolls on like a slowly turning prayer wheel. You've returned to your duties, this time in the textile room, repairing worn robes and mending prayer sashes. Your fingers move through the needlework clumsily at first, the fine thread snagging on your calloused hands. But soon, rhythm takes over again. stitch by stitch, loop by loop. Just another form of meditation, this one made from cloth and silence. The room is warm, sunlight spills across the tatami in angled streaks. Dust motes float in the glow, slow and aimless like dreams that lost their way. You catch yourself gazing too long. A blink stretches too far. The ox of drowsiness, remember him, has returned, chewing cud in the corners of your vision. But you've learned how to work beside him now. Not to fight, just to remain aware. You shift your position. Breathe deeply. Let the sun touch your cheek and stitch again. Later that afternoon, the wind shifts. The mountain air takes on a sharpness. You know what that means? The seasons are changing, and with them so too will the monks' sleep habits. See, while the temple's schedule remains largely consistent, subtle adjustments are made throughout the year to account for the changing climate. In the heat of summer, monks might sleep with windows open and robes loosely tied. In winter, extra robe layers, perhaps a thin quilt if the temple is generous. And let's be real, it usually isn't. You've been issued an additional underlayer, a simple cotton wrap that adds a hint of warmth without the shame of luxury. Some temples further north allowed short mid-morning rests during the harshest winters, when sitting motionless for long periods became a test of frostbite survival rather than spiritual endurance. One scroll from the 15th century describes a monk whose beard froze to the floor during zazen. He was praised for not flinching. Historians still debate whether that was a metaphor or a very literal cautionary tale. You choose to believe it's both, and you silently vow to never grow a beard. Clothing becomes a key tool in sleep regulation here. The layers you wear affect not only your warmth, but your ability to stay alert. Too few layers, and the cold keeps you awake, but painfully so. Too many, and you risk drifting off mid-meditation, lulled by body heat and thick sleeves. Some monks develop their own internal thermostat, carefully selecting how tightly to wrap themselves before sitting. Robe snugness becomes a personal science. You begin to experiment too, loosening your collar during afternoon meditation, tightening it again after the sun dips. You're becoming something of a robe sommelier. One of the elder monks even carries a small pouch of warm stones in winter, heated briefly over embers and tucked into his sleeves. He swears by them. You try it once. It works surprisingly well, until one falls out and startles a passing cat. The cat survives. Barely. And speaking of animals, yes, sometimes monks shared their sleeping spaces with them. Not officially, of course, but cats, mice, small birds. These creatures found their way into the quietest corners, drawn by warmth and stillness. There's even a well-worn story of a temple cat that chose the laps of the most sleep-deprived monks for her naps, as though offering mercy. She hasn't visited your mat yet, but you're hopeful. The wind picks up outside. Leaves begin to scatter like tiny monks in training, flustered, chaotic, oddly focused. You close the window pane slightly, the rice paper rustling gently. Back in your quarters, the air is growing colder by the hour. You light a small stick of warming incense, clove and cedar, and let the smoke curl under your nose like a promise of comfort. It doesn't warm your toes, but it lifts your spirits. You're reminded again, sleep here is not a destination. It's a shifting companion, a trickster, a teacher. It changes shape with the weather, with the robes, with the very scent of the air. And in adapting to it, you're learning something far greater than how to rest. You're learning how to stay awake to the moment, to your body, to the world spinning gently beyond these paper walls. Evening falls with a hush, as if the entire mountain exhales in unison. The sky outside fades from silver to plum, then finally to black silk. Lanterns flicker to life, casting dim orange pools along the walkways. Somewhere near the bell tower, a wind chime begins its quiet, irregular song, metal notes skipping like stones across water. You sit again on your mat, knees folded beneath you. This time you're not here to meditate. Not yet. Tonight's focus is more mysterious. You're reflecting on your dreams. Yes, monks do dream. Even ones who sleep upright with their heads propped on wooden pillows and knees protesting with every breath. And in many temples, dreams aren't simply nighttime curiosities. They're subjects of cautious respect and quiet suspicion. A few days ago, you dreamed of an ink brush turning into a crow. No idea what it means, but you mentioned it discreetly to one of the older monks. He simply nodded and said, "Keep watching." Then he handed you a fresh brush and walked away. You're starting to understand that in Zen, not every answer is an answer. Some monks record their dreams, if they're deemed worthy. A temple scroll you copied earlier listed over 30 dream occurrences from a single elder spanning decades. Most were cryptic: snow falling inside a bowl, lantern singing a sutra, stone weeping beneath the peach tree. Each one carefully transcribed, and then, just as carefully, never explained. You've come to realize that dreams can serve as subtle teachings if handled with humility, but they can also become traps if mistaken for divine instruction or mistaken identity. The line between vision and vanity is thin. Historians still argue over how seriously these dream records were taken. Some believe they were spiritual diaries, tools for tracking subconscious insights. Others argue they were symbolic literature, meant to inspire rather than report. And of course, some believe they were just the earliest examples of monks trying to one-up each other with elaborate metaphors. Monks, it turns out, are still human. But tonight, you're not trying to decipher your dreams. You're just trying to sit with them. You breathe slowly. The scent of chrysanthemum incense coiling through the room. You light the dream blend from that elder monk's pouch, the one he gave you with a wink. The smoke smells slightly spicy, slightly sweet, like a festival memory wrapped in a library. You lie down, flat this time, not kneeling. A small liberty. The others pretend not to notice. Your eyes close, your thoughts drift, and slowly, your mind enters that in-between state again. You know this feeling now. Drowsy, yes, but also alert beneath the surface. Like your awareness is sitting in a small boat, drifting down a very quiet river. You see an image, a temple gate, slowly opening. Inside, a single pine tree grows in the center of a stone courtyard. It's not your temple, not any you know, but it feels familiar, and then it fades. You stir, just a little, but not enough to fully wake. The incense still burns softly. The breeze lifts a corner of your robe. You remain still. Later you will hear other monks describe similar moments. Dreams that aren't dreams, thoughts that aren't thoughts, visions that visit without being summoned. One novice once confessed, in a moment of honesty during morning chores, that he saw a golden koi leap from his bowl during a dream, and the next day found the answer to a koan that had puzzled him for weeks. No one called him foolish, they just bowed. You're beginning to understand why. Sleep in this place isn't just rest, it's part of the training, part of the awareness. Even your dreams are folded into the practice, watched, not chased, not clung to. And when the bell eventually sounds again, soft, low, like it too just woke from a dream, you rise with the others. You don't shake off the night. You carry it with you folded inside your robe like another layer. Sleep may come again, or not, it doesn't matter. Because here, even sleep is awake. The sky is still dark when you step outside, but it's a different darkness now, thin around the edges, like fabric stretched too far. Morning is close. You can feel it waiting just beyond the ridgeline, nudging the stars aside with patient fingers. Your breath fogs slightly as you walk across the stone path. The air smells damp and mineral rich, like moss after rain. You pass the garden, silent, orderly, and somehow watching you back. A few leaves skitter in the wind like restless thoughts. You're not going to meditation yet. You're heading to Tangario. Now, Tangario isn't a formal room. It's more like a space, a state, a rite of passage. Traditionally, it was used to test new monks' dedication. You'd sit there for hours, days even, just sit, silent, motionless, no food, no comfort, and certainly no sleep. You're not here for initiation, but you've been sent to revisit Tangario for a different reason, to experience wakefulness at its most raw. You sit on the wooden platform beneath the overhanging eaves, your legs folded, your back straight. Your robe rustles softly as you settle. The wind touches your ears like a whisper. Stay. No bell, no chant, no guidance. Just the creak of bamboo and the sound of your own heartbeat. And the sleep? Oh, it creeps in quick this time. You blink once, twice. Your head bobs before you even realize it. You catch yourself, suck in a deep breath through your nose, and blink again, wider this time. This is a different kind of fight. There's no incense to distract you, no chant to carry your attention, no task to keep your hands busy. Just the sit, just the dark, just the relentless rhythm of your mind, circling sleep like a moth around a candle. You remember now the stories told about monks who endured Tangario for days on end. Some temples required a full week of sitting before granting entry to a novice. No food beyond simple gruel, no sleep, no talking, just watching, waiting. Historians still puzzle over how widespread this practice truly was. Some argue it was ceremonial, lasting only a few hours. Others point to temple records that list full weeks of observation. Regardless, the symbolism remains powerful. If you can't master your own urge to lie down, how can you possibly rise up? And here you are, mastering nothing. Your eyelids droop, your posture wavers, you straighten again. You start counting breaths just to have something to hold on to. You think you see something move in the shadows, a trick of light, or the fox spirits the old gardener mentioned once, half joking. You blink, the shape is gone. The world at this hour feels thinner, like dreams could walk through the walls if they felt like it. In that foggy, half-dreaming moment, you recall a phrase from a scroll you once copied by candlelight. The awakened sleeper walks between breaths. It made no sense at the time. Now it feels uncomfortably close to your current state. You continue to sit, your spine buzzes, your eyes sting, your thoughts unravel like loose thread. And you don't stop them. You let them go. You let everything go. Eventually the wind shifts. A bell rings in the distance. And just like that, your time in Tangario ends. No one comes to get you. No one congratulates you. You simply rise quietly and walk back toward the hall. Your legs tremble. Your neck crackles like old paper. But your mind? Your mind is strangely clear. Not sharp, not fresh, but empty, spacious, like a room that's just been aired out. And as you walk past the others gathering for the final meditation of the night, a few of them nod. Not at you, necessarily, but at what you now carry. The taste of the edge of sleep. The discipline of not falling into it. You face drowsiness like a dragon and live to sit again. And as the stars begin to fade, you bow once more toward the gathering light. The final stretch of night folds softly into morning, and everything around you is glowing with that peculiar, not quite sunlight, pale, blue-toned, impossibly quiet. The bamboo grove is just beginning to stir in the breeze, and a soft, scraping sound echoes faintly as someone nearby arranges sandals at the temple entrance. It's a sound you've heard every day, but now it feels final, not dramatic, just conclusive, like the last chord of a lullaby. You return to your mat, the same corner, the same stubborn splinter on the floorboard you've learned to avoid with your left heel. Everything familiar. But you settle in with a new kind of awareness tonight. You're not less tired, you're not more enlightened, but you're different, because now you understand what this has all been about. The sleep wasn't the point. The lack of sleep wasn't the point either. It was what happened around sleep, what sleep revealed about your limits, your cravings, your softness, and your sharpness. The bell sounds again, once, twice. A soft reminder, the final zazen of the night. You move through the motions with care. Your robe folds properly without fuss. Your legs settle more easily than they used to. Even your wooden pillow feels less like punishment and more like a tool, a quiet reminder to hold your head high. Even in slumber, you sit, you breathe, and this time you're not bracing against the sleepiness. You welcome it. You let it wash over you without grabbing at it. You no longer fear it will pull you under. This is the paradox you've been walking toward all along. Sleep not as indulgence, nor as enemy, but as mirror. You see yourself in the wanting, and you see your practice in the restraint. Some of the older monks nod off now and then during this final session. It's allowed, not encouraged, but understood, because they know that even the most disciplined body will sag. Even the sharpest mind will blur. And it's okay. One of them, a senior with a thin silver beard and eyes like still water, begins to snore, just a little. No one moves to stop him. No one laughs. It's a sound as common as the wind through the pines. The moment passes. The hall remains. Outside, the sky is blooming. Saffron and coral streaks brushing the eastern edge of the world. You bow low, touching your forehead to the mat. When you rise, your eyes are damp, and not just from sleep, because you've made it through, not survived, participated, and now, as the rest of the temple begins to rustle into full wakefulness, tea boiling, floors sweeping, chores beginning, you take one last quiet breath before the day carries you onward. Now let's gently let go of this mountain monastery. Feel your own body now. Your fingers soft, your breathing slow, your eyelids heavy in that sweet way they get just before they close on their own. Imagine once more the scent of sandalwood curling like smoke around your thoughts, and the sound of distant bells echoing softly across the temple roof. You've walked a long path tonight, through twilight rituals and midnight sutras, through dreams shaped like koans and naps disguised as meditation. And maybe, just maybe, you felt the shape of sleep shift inside you, from craving to discipline to peace. Let that awareness stretch through your limbs now. Unfold slowly. No rush. Just like the monks easing into dawn, you too are allowed to soften. If thoughts come, let them pass like incense on the breeze. If sleep pulls at you, let yourself follow. Not out of exhaustion, but because you've practiced stillness long enough to receive its quiet reward. You are not rushing toward rest now. You are drifting into it, with every breath deeper, with every breath lighter. And if a dream comes, perhaps a pine tree or a glowing koi, or just the rhythm of sandals on smooth stone, accept it. You've earned the quiet, you've earned the pause, and when you wake again, the world will be waiting. But for now, just rest.